Okay, here we go with Chapter 1, Lesson 4, Properties of Numbers. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about some different properties and then how we can use them in order to simplify some algebraic expressions. So first off, let's go over what these properties are. Our first property is the commutative. The commutative property deals with order. You want to think movement for commutative. You think commuting to work, you are moving from your home to your place of business. So commutative is moving, or our order. So we have the commutative property of addition. We have an example here. We said 3 plus 2 equals. Now if we switch the order to 2 plus 3, if we double check it, 3 plus 2 is 5. And 2 plus 3 is also 5. So we see that switching the orders here did not make any difference. Then same thing, the commutative property of multiplication. We could have an example of 5 times 8 equals 8 times 5. Again, all we did was change the order. And to double check it, 5 times 8 is 40 equals 8 times 5 is also 40. So we can see that moving or changing our order in addition and multiplication did not change the results of the problem. Alright, so that was commutative property. Next up we have the associative property. Associative property deals with grouping. And again, we have the associative property of addition and multiplication. So let's look at some examples here. First off, for addition, if we had in parentheses 2 plus 3 plus 4 on the outside equals, now if we change our grouping, so if we move our 2 outside parentheses plus and then 3 plus 4 inside parentheses, so we change where our parentheses fell. We changed what was grouped. But if we double check it, 2 plus 3 is 5 plus 4. 5 plus 4 is 9 equals 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 7. 2 plus 7 is still 9. So we see that it does still work. And then an associative property of multiplication. Sticking with those same numbers. I'm going to write down here right wherever you guys can fit it. So 2 times 3 inside parentheses times 4 equals 2 outside times 3 times 4. So again, we changed where our parentheses fell. Everything's multiplication though. If we double check, 2 times 3 is 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24 equals 2 times 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 12 is still 24, so we can see that changing the grouping when working with addition and multiplication does not change the end result. Okay, our last property that we're going to talk about in this lesson is the identity. So when you think identity, you think yourself. Who are you? So with our identity property, that means what can I do in order to get the same result at the end? So what can I add to get the same thing? So 6 plus something equals 6. Well, if I add 0 to anything, you end up with the same. So this would be an example of the additive identity. Anytime you see plus 0, that's your additive identity. And then multiplication, we want to think the same thing. So our multiplicative identity, 8 times what, leaves me with 8. 8 times 1. Multiplying by 1 does not change the result, so that is our multiplicative identity when you see anything multiplied by 1. Okay, now that we've gone over what our properties are, we want to see if we can name them. So 2a, d plus 0 equals d. When you see this plus 0, that was our additive identity. Alright, next one, 14 plus 9 plus 10 equals 14 plus 9 plus 10. Our grouping symbols, our parentheses changed places, but the order didn't change. So 14, 9, 10, 14, 9, 10. Order didn't change, just the grouping. When we talk about grouping, that is our associative property. And then after, you want to put a plus sign to show that that's the associative property of addition, not multiplication. Okay, next up, 8 times 1 equals 8. Just like before, you can see that times 1, that's our identity. We're multiplying, so that's the multiplicative identity. And last up, 5 times 7 times 2 equals 7 times 2 times 5. We have no grouping symbol, so we know it's not associative. We know it's not an identity, so if we check our order changed, anytime order changes, that is our commutative property. And we're multiplying, so we're going to put a little multiplication symbol at the end. Make sure you identify whether it's addition or multiplication. Alright, so there's a little practice. Name what properties are, given an example. Okay, so a couple multiple choice. We want to get you guys used to multiple choice questions because you'll see those when you take your state tests at the end of the year. So we'll throw those in from time to time. Which property supports the fact that 12 times 1 equals 12? We see this times 12, or I mean times 1, sorry, 12 times 1. Times 1 was an identity. We see two identities here. We want to make sure we pick the multiplication identity. So C, identity with the multiplication sign. And then the next one, which property supports the fact that 11 plus A plus C equals A plus C plus 11? Well, if we check through these, I'm just going to start with C. Additive identity, that was plus 0, so we know it's not C. Commutative. Commutative meant that we were changing the order. Did we change the order? 11 AC, AC 11, yes we did. There's no grouping symbol, so we know it's commutative, but this one's multiplication, so it's not B. Come over here, we now know it's commutative. There's our addition. So our answer is B. You don't have to mark those off, guys. Just make sure you have the right answer circled. All right, now that we've had a little bit of practice with naming our properties, or identifying what property is shown, we want to use those properties to simplify algebraic expressions. So we look at this first one. We have the quantity 3 plus E plus 7. We don't know what E is, so right now we can't do anything. But we know that since this is addition, we can change our grouping. Or first we'll actually change our order. So instead of 3 plus E, we're going to change it to E plus 3 plus 7. That is our commutative property of addition. Now we're going to change our grouping. We're going to move our E on the outside, plus, and then group our 3 plus 7. That's our associative property of addition. Now we know that 3 plus 7 is 10, so our final answer in simplified form is E plus 10. Using these properties to change our original problem into something that we could actually work with. All right, part B, 8 times the quantity x times 5. We're going to go through that same process. I don't know what x is, so I need to get the x away from the 5. So just like before, I want to change my order first. So 5 times x. We can do that because of the commutative property of multiplication. We're multiplying this time. Now I want to group these two. So 8 times 5 is now grouped together, times x. That was our associative property of multiplication. And now I know that 8 times 5 is 40, times x. And we're going to rewrite this as just 40x. You guys will get some practice this year. Anytime there's nothing in here, that means multiplication. We want to see you writing it 40x, not 40 times x. So make sure you get used to this form here. Now we could do these two problems because they were all addition and all multiplication. Make sure it's all the same symbol before you just start moving things around. Okay, so we look at C. 9 plus 0 plus Q. Well, this plus 0 part, we know that adding 0 does not change the result. So we can actually just get rid of that and 9 plus Q because of our identity property, our additive identity. And last up, 4 times A times 0. We haven't gone over this property yet, but we know that 0 times anything is 0. It doesn't matter what A is. A times 0 is still going to be 0. And we call this our zero property of multiplication. So zero property of multiplication. Make sure you recognize the difference between the zero property and the identity. Identity is when we add zero. Zero property is when we multiply by zero. And then 4 times 0, final answer is 0. Alrighty guys, that is lesson 4. Come in with any questions that you have tomorrow.